So now in our next section, we're going to build out the map. So switching back to Tableau, here the candidate bars are showing all the candidates, not just the gubernatorial candidates. So we're going to need a filter for that. And since we're going to have a filter that's applying in multiple worksheets, there's different ways to set that up. And we'll use one of them right now. So I'm just going to do a left click and drag and select these top 3 bars here for our candidates. And then in the tooltip that comes up, I'm going to click on the Venn diagram icon here for sets and do a create set. And Tableau shows the dimensions in my data here. In this case, we just have the candidate dimension in the view. And I'm going to name this set gubernatorial candidates. And I'm going to do one more thing on the bottom here. I'm going to click on add to filter shelf. So I'm creating the set and Tableau is going to put that set onto the filter shelf and hit OK. So now we've filtered this to just our 3 gubernatorial candidates. So this is great. And now let's create a new worksheet. So we can do that by going up to the worksheet menu and choosing new worksheet, pressing Control M or Command M on the Mac. There's also in the toolbar here a new worksheet button, and down here at the bottom in our list of worksheets and dashboards as tabs, we can also add a new worksheet down here. So I'll just click on this button and create a new worksheet. And now we're going to select our zip code. So I'm just going to left click on zip code, and then I'm going to use Control or Command on the Mac to select receipt amount, and then click on Show Me here. And this is showing a set of different chart types that Tableau can automatically build for us. So it'll lay out the pills as it needs to based on the set of dimensions and measures that we've selected. So in this case, I've selected one geographic dimension and a measure, and a symbol map happens to be the recommended chart type. And now let's click on that. And what just happened? Boom, we're seeing a map. I will click off the Show Me tab for now, so we can see this receipt amount for different places. And we're seeing a map of, down in the bottom left, we can see there's 7,067 marks. So there's 7,067 zip codes that Tableau could look up and identify and assign geocodes to within the continental US, Alaska, Hawaii, Guam out here, and then Puerto Rico out there. There's 106 unknown that we could potentially click on and clean up and assign. In this case, we're looking at the donations for all of the candidates. There's nothing on the filter shelf right now. So I can just filter for the gubernatorial candidates by left clicking on my gubernatorial candidate set here and dragging and dropping that up to the filter shelf. And I don't have to do anything with that because it's a set. Tableau is automatically only going to include those members of the set. So those 3 gubernatorial candidates. And when we did that, in that filtering, the map automatically zoomed in to show the extent of the data. So there's been donations still from Hawaii and Alaska and Guam here. And for this particular case, we're really interested in the donations from Maine. So let's filter for that. So we can take state from dimensions and click and drag that out and drop that on filters. And then Tableau presents us with a filter dialog. And in this case, it's easy enough to just scroll down into this list and choose Maine. And then I can hit apply, and that applies the changes, leaving the dialog up, or I can hit just OK and close it out. So I'll do it in this case. So it did not filter for just Maine. We can see some blue dots here down in Florida, and there's one all the way out in Utah. So let's explore this some more. So to help us stay within the flow of analyzing and working with our data, I can right-click on this point, and Tableau will give me a context menu where I can do some different things, including view the data. Another way is if I'm hovering over and I left-click on it, I get the controls on the tool in the tooltip here, and I can click on the far right of this on this View Data button, and then we get the View Data window showing up. And here we've got 2 tabs here. So one is a summary tab. So this is showing us the fields that are used in the view. So we have the zip code, the receipt amount, and the 2 latitude and longitude pills, all showing as fields here. I can sort them, rearrange them if I need to view things. Then we have also a full data tab where I'm going to see the underlying records in the data set that made this. So I click on that, and we can see here there's donations from 15 Heron Drive somewhere to Elliot Cutler from the city of Topsom. And so this employer here is the employer of the donor, first name and last name of the donor. Continuing to scroll right here, and here we see there's the state of Maine. So that's why it passed the filter. The state's still Maine. There were donations to Elliot Cutler, one of the gubernatorial candidates, and they have a zip code of 84086. So being from Maine, all of our zip codes start with 0. So I'm guessing probably when this data was entered, somebody typed in an 8 instead of a 0, and it's the wrong zip code. For the purposes of this demo, I'm not going to worry about those few extra points here, and I'm just going to filter all of them out. So we can close this by using the X in the upper corner here, and I'll just click off so this mark is no longer activated, and now I just want to select these marks. So with that, I'm hovering over the map menu here, and I'm going to select the Lasso Tool on the far right, which you can also get to just by pressing the D key. I'll click on that, and then I can start clicking and dragging, and I'm just going to carefully drag right over Maine and let go. And then we have our handy tooltip here, and I'm going to do a keep only on this. And now we're looking at just the 404 zip codes in the state of Maine. Now, one thing with this is I've filtered this worksheet, but I haven't filtered this one. So we want this zip code filter that I just did to apply to both worksheets. And to get that, we can either left click on the little drop down menu or right click anywhere on the pill and choose apply to worksheets. And then we have 4 different options here. So I'll start from the bottom. So there's only this worksheet. I could do selected worksheets. So pick certain worksheets in my dashboard, in my workbook. Or I can make it a global filter. So everything using this 2014 contribution loan extract, all using this data source. Or I could filter if I had other data sources in this dashboard, everything that has a zip code, I could filter for these zips. So in this case, since I just have the one and where it's a gubernatorial dashboard we're building out, I'm going to do all using this data source. And when I do that, we get this is a global icon in our filters here. And with that, if I switch over to the candidate bars, that also has the same icon saying that this is a global filter. So we've now made that apply to both of them. Okay, so on this map, we're seeing a point for every zip code, but what I'm really interested in is a point for every gubernatorial candidate here. So let's drag out our candidate dimension and drop this on color. And we could have dropped it all over the place on the viz. I chose color here, so that way we're still seeing one map and we're seeing a mark for each of our candidates. And in some cases, there's some overlap here, which is kind of hard to see because we've got this one giant mark for Elliot Cutler in 04112. So why was there so much in donations to Elliot Cutler from one single zip code, so much more than anything else? Well, let's use that view data capability again. I can just right click on the mark and do view data. So here we're seeing again, we've just selected one single mark. So we're seeing this one row in the summary for that. And then I'll click on full data and let's look at the underlying data here. So we got a bunch of donations from all the same zip code to Elliot Cutler for a variety of different things. Here's the employer, and then here's that first name and last name of the donor, and it's all Elliot Cutler. So these are all donations by him to his own candidacy. So having found out that there's all these donations, this could be an interesting story in and of itself, but in this case, we can see that most of these donations were by Elliot Cutler to himself. So with that, I'd like to get rid of those out of there. So we want to filter on the combination of the first name and the last name. And we can set that up in Tableau since they're separate fields by using a combined field. So I'm going to click on first name, and then I'm going to control click or command click on the Mac on the last name, and then right click and choose create combined field. So this is going to essentially concatenate these two fields together. And I'll show you by right-clicking on this and choosing Edit Combined Field. So here's all those first names and all those last names together. the combination of the two, and there's 31,000 of them in the database. So with this, I can now drop my first name and last name combined onto the filter shelf, and I get the list of filter options. And with 30,000, or in this case, there's 9,900 values after the gubernatorial and state and zip filters have been applied, I'm just going to search for Cutler on here, and I get a few different Cutlers on here, and I'm just going to see 2 Elliots, and we can see Tableau's case sensitive. So I'm going to get rid of this Elliot Cutler and that Elliot Cutler, filter these out, and then hit OK. And now the view changed a bunch, and we're now seeing all our circles having changed size because we no longer have all of these donations by Elliot Cutler to himself. And we could probably go further in this data and see, are there misspellings of Cutler, which there actually are in this data set. Were there donations by Mike Mishu to his campaign, Paul LePage to his campaign, things like that. We're going to let that go right now. And now we want to fix this overlap of the marks here and really show one mark with all of the different candidates. So we can drag out this candidate dimension again here, and we can drop it in different places. So we could drop it on columns, for example, and then Tableau would draw 3 side-by-side bar charts. Maps. But then it gets hard to sort of compare location to location on this. So what we really want for this is for them to be all in one place. So I'm going to remove candidate from the view here. And there's a couple of different ways I can do that. I can right-click on this and choose remove, or I can just simply drag it out and drop it in the empty gray area or back over my dimensions window, and then we're back. And in this case, I'm just going to change the mark to a pie mark. Now, there's a number of cases where pie marks or pie charts aren't that suitable, but if we have multiple values in the same place and we want to see some sort of relationship of part to whole, a pie chart is a perfectly good chart type for that. So on the marks card, I'm going to click on the drop down here, and instead of the automatic circle marks, we're going to scroll down and use pie. And now Tableau's drawn pie marks on the map. And the colors are kind of hard to read, so let's fix those. So from the candidate color legend here on the right, I can use this drop down. So click on the little drop down triangle here and choose edit colors. I could also just double click on one of the colors here, and either way bring up the edit colors window. And now I can select one of the candidates. So Elliot Cutler was the independent. I'm going to make him yellow. Michael Mishu was the Democrat. I'll make him blue. Paul LePage is Republican, and I'll make him red. Just being common colors that people use. And then with this, I can hit OK. I could just hit apply and see my changes without having to change anything, but I'm going to hit OK in this case. And I have selected Elliot Cutler here. So this is one of Tableau's features, is this is something called brushing or highlighting, where I can click on the parts of the color legend to see them, these marks, in place with everything else. So if I click them off, now I can see all of my pies here and have a sense of where the donations are. So we can quickly see Elliot Cutler had a large amount of donations, primarily in the southern, most populous and wealthiest part of the state. As we get further north into the state, where it's more rural and more Republican leaning, the pies are relatively more red, indicating support for Paul LePage. So now let's add a little information to the map where we can kind of do a comparison to population here. So from the map menu, we're going to click on map and then map layers. And when I do this, Tableau brings up a map layers window that overlays our data and dimensions and measures. So for the background, let's change the style from light to normal here. So that way we're seeing the ocean, since that's such a large part of the border of Maine is the ocean. And then on this, we also have map layers. And in this case, I'm going to turn off land cover. That gets rid of some of the parks and things that were just providing some extraneous noise in the display here. Get rid of the country region borders, so that gets rid of a little bit more here. And also turn off the state province names, because we're going to put Maine in the title of it ultimately. Most people are familiar with it, or would be looking at this would be familiar with Maine. And then we're going to bring in a data layer. So Tableau ships with a variety of data layers, primarily based off of US Census data. And we're going to turn on population here. So when I click on this, Tableau is now coloring each state by the population of that state. And in this case, what I really want to do is have this broken down into smaller levels. Since the map is at the zip code level, why not break down our data later by zip code as well? So there's each zip code on there on our map, and we also have a legend for that as well. Now, when I hover over the marks here and I'm looking at this, as I'm getting a sense of this, I have the candidate, the zips, the receipt amount. It'd be nice to know how many donations there were to the candidates. So in this case, I'm just going to drag out number of records because each record is a donation. And I'm going to drop that onto Tooltip. So now on the tooltips, we have candidate, zip, number of records, and receipt amount. Only this isn't such a nice way to read it. It's a lot easier for people if it isn't, the tooltips are in plain language. So let's edit the tooltip for that. So we can click on the tooltip button here. And here we see our tooltip. We have some formatting controls. How do we want to show tooltips at all or not? And in this case, and then this is regular text box and we can edit it. So I'm going to say candidate received. Let's see here. Let's do some number of records. So how many donations they had. And then I'm going to do a Control X here and paste that in. Donations worth our receipt amount. And then from our zip code. An extra space there. We can delete those. And then if I want to, I can click on the preview button and we can see LA Cutler received 1 donations worth $15 from 03901. But in this tooltip, it's kind of hard to read, okay, how many donations, because everything's bold here. So I can just double click on this and make it not bold and double click on those. Turn off the bold, hit the preview button here. And now it's a little LA Cutler 1 donation, $15, 03901. A little easier to read. And I can hit OK on this. And now there's our tooltips, which very smoothly update. And let's give this worksheet a name. So I'm going to double click on the sheet 2 name down here and call this candidate map and save the workbook. So with that, we've now completed building out the map. So we built out a manual set for the 3 candidates. We used Show Me to build out a map. We did some filtering and view data and lasso selection to clean up our zip codes. We created a combined field and used that as a filter to remove the self-donations. We edited the colors, manually changed the mark types to create a pie chart, showed off map layers, and customized the tooltip.